"You're not real family," my brother said, handing me a paper plate at his wedding. So I took back the $6,200 and watched it all burn. The weight of the grocery bags dug into my palms as I followed Mom into her kitchen. The familiar scent of lemon polish and simmering pot roast usually felt like a comforting hug, but today it felt heavy, thick with unspoken expectations. I set the bags on the gleaming granite countertop, a countertop I'd helped pay for when Dad's sure-thing investment went south a few years back. "Oh, thank you, Sarah dear," Mom said, her voice a little too bright. She started unpacking, her movements fussy. "It's just, Adam and Lily are so stressed. You know how weddings are. Every little thing adds up. That photographer they want, well, he's very good, but—" She trailed off, glancing at me hopefully. I sighed internally, a familiar weariness settling over me. "I sent Adam some money last week, Mom." "I know, dear, and it was a godsend truly. But you know your brother. You try so hard, but things are tight. And Lily, poor thing, she just wants her perfect day." The implication hung in the air, thick as the simmering gravy. "You, Sarah, the stable one, the one with the good job, you should do more." It was a role I played my whole life. I remembered being 19, standing in a dimly lit, smoke-filled backroom, handing over my entire summer's earnings to a man with cold eyes, bailing Adam out of a gambling debt. Dad's reaction then wasn't anger at Adam, but a dismissive wave towards me. "Well, that's what family is for, Sarah," he'd said, his voice laced with an odd sort of pride in this flawed logic. "You're the stable one." 20 years later, I was still the stable one. I had a decent job as a project manager, a quiet apartment I'd furnished myself, and a savings account I diligently fed, dreaming of a small house with a garden. But that dream seemed to recede with every family crisis. My stability wasn't my own. It was a resource, a communal fund they drew from whenever needed, often without asking, always without true appreciation. My deepest fear, the one I rarely admitted even to myself, was being utterly alone. Maybe that's why I kept paying for a seat at a table where I often felt I didn't quite belong. A few weeks earlier, I'd met Adam and Lily at the Gilded Spoon, a chic little cafe, to discuss the wedding plans. Lily, all blonde highlights and nervous energy, gushed about a venue, a historic estate with sprawling lawns, that was easily double their initial budget. Adam looked pale, running a hand through his hair until he caught my eye. That familiar, hopeful, almost pleading look. "It's divine, isn't it, Sarah?" Lily trilled. "Imagine the photos. So much more classy than that country club Adam first suggested." She wrinkled her nose. I tried to steer them gently. "It's beautiful, Lily, but the logistics, the cost." "Oh, we'll manage," Lily said breezily, though her eyes darted to me. "Presentation is everything, you know. We want the right people to feel comfortable." She then launched into a sharp critique of a mutual acquaintance's recent wedding, calling it tacky and desperate. Her words weren't just catty. They dripped with a deep-seated fear of judgment, a fear that made her sharp-edged. That Sunday dinner felt like a replay. Dad held forth on Adam's networking skills, a euphemism for his current unemployment, while Mom praised Lily's impeccable taste. I mentioned winning an Employee of the Year award at work. "That's nice, dear," Mom said, patting my hand before turning back to Lily. "Now, about the wedding favors. Have you considered those little boxes of artisanal macarons?" Dad chimed in. "Adam's just starting out, Sarah. He needs a good launch, a strong start. This wedding, it's an investment in his future. You've always been so independent. You understand." I didn't understand. I understood that my independence was a convenient excuse to sideline me while simultaneously relying on its financial fruits. Then the Venmo request started. $3,200 for the caterer deposit. "You're my only hope, sis." Adam texted. $1,200 for Dad's suit. Mom called, her voice thick with manufactured emotion. "He just wants to look his best for his son. But that Armani." $1,800 for drone footage. A blunt request from Lily, punctuated only by a string of bride and groom emojis. Each time, I hesitated, my finger hovering over the approve button. My house fund jar seemed to mock me from a shelf. But each time I paid, the hollow feeling grew, a tiny black hole in my chest. My attempts to engage were met with a polite, impenetrable wall. "Can I help address invitations?" I asked Lily. "Oh, sweetie, my mother and I have a system. Wouldn't want to confuse things. What should I wear? Am I a bridesmaid?" I asked Adam. Lily's handling all that. It's a small party, really. We wanted to keep it cohesive." Cohesive? Was I not cohesive? I confided in Chloe, my best friend since college, over coffee. "They're using you, Sarah," she said, her expression fierce. "Can't you see it? $6,200? And you don't even know if you're in the wedding. They're just busy, stressed." I argued weakly, the words tasting like ash. "It's a big event. It's a big grift," Chloe retorted. But I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. The breaking point came a week before the wedding. I was scrolling through Instagram, a mindless habit, when a picture stopped my thumb. It was Lily's story. A long, polished table under twinkling lights. My parents, Adam, Lily, her parents, even my aunt and uncle from Florida, all laughing, glasses raised. The location tag read, "The Willows Rehearsal Dinner." My breath hitched. I hadn't known. I hadn't been told. I hadn't been invited. My hands were trembling as I dialed Adam's number. He answered on the third ring, his voice loud with background chatter. "Hey, can't talk long. It's nuts here." "Adam," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "The rehearsal dinner." I didn't know." There was a pause. Then a short, almost surprised laugh. "Oh, yeah." It sort of slipped my mind. It was very last minute, really. Just immediate family and the party. The ice that had been forming around my heart now spread through my entire body. "Adam," I repeated a bit stronger now, the words tasting like shards of glass. "I am immediate family." Another pause, this one filled with irritation. "Look, Sarah, don't make this a drama, okay? It's Lily's call, really. It's about the vibe. You know how she is. It's not personal." But it was deeply, excruciatingly personal. He didn't say goodbye. He just hung up, leaving me in the silence of my apartment, the glow of the Instagram story mocking me. The excuses, the justifications, the relentless hope, they all crumbled at once. It wasn't stress. It wasn't oversight. It was deliberate. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that I had to look closer. I had to know just how deep the exclusion ran. The feeling of betrayal was a physical thing, a cold, heavy weight in my stomach. The ice that had formed during Adam's call didn't melt. It hardened. I sat in my quiet apartment, the city lights twinkling outside, and opened my laptop. If they wouldn't tell me the truth, I would find it myself. My first stop was that old Google Sheet Lily had shared months ago, the one I'd helped her set up for budgeting. It was still accessible. I clicked through the tabs, venue, catering, flowers, until one caught my eye, guest list notes. My fingers trembled as I scrolled down. And there it was, next to my name, in Selby 12. A stark cold comment, doesn't match vibe. Possible wild card. Suggest, not inviting to central events. Keep outside main tent. Lily/mom MTG04/18. Doesn't match vibe. Wild card. The words felt like tiny, sharp blows. I, who had funded half their vibe, was now considered a potential problem, someone to be managed and kept at arm's length. I took a screenshot, my movements precise, almost robotic. Next, Facebook. The engagement brunch photo I'd seen, but tried to ignore. Our core, our forever team, Lily had captioned it. I scrolled through the comments again. Lily's cousin. Wasn't there another sister? Or, am I imagining that? Lily's reply, dripping with faux sweetness and pointed barbs. You're not imagining. Let's just say some people support quietly, and some don't support at all. 19 likes. 19 tiny daggers. Another screenshot. Then a long shot. 2 years ago, I'd fixed Adam's laptop. He'd given me remote access, and being Adam, arrogant, careless, and convinced of his own importance, he'd probably never revoked it. "You're a tech whiz, Sarah," he'd said back then, patting my shoulder. "But I handle the big picture. Just make sure it works." His arrogance was about to become his undoing. My heart pounded as I typed in the credentials. Access granted. I navigated through his files, feeling like an intruder, but driven by a desperate need to understand. Emails, PDFs, and then a folder labeled Wedding Plan B. Inside, updated guest lists, diagrams of the tent layout. And there I was again. Sarah, last name, escort to lawn area. Provide plate. No tent access. No explanation. The worst was yet to come. A WhatsApp group chat titled Wedding Warriors. Adam, Lily, and her inner circle. I started reading, my stomach churning. Lily, ugh, Sarah just asked about being a bridesmaid again. So awkward. Bridesmaid 1. LOL. Just tell her the dresses are all gone. Adam, she's just not photogenic. Like, we love her, but she's got that off-brand energy. Lily, I feel bad. She paid for half the cake. Should we at least let her help cut it? Adam, no. She's the sad single aunt type. It'll mess up the aesthetic. Anyway, she's weird. What's she gonna do? Venmo us into submission? LOL. They laughed. They mocked me. They saw me as a joke, a walking ATM with off-brand energy. The numbness I'd felt earlier cracked, and underneath was a deep, seismic rage. It wasn't hot and explosive. It was cold, hard, and terrifyingly clear. I saved everything. Every chat, every file, every screenshot, meticulously, like an archivist of my own destruction. Just as I closed the laptop, my phone rang. Dad, his voice, usually booming, was low and laced with steel. Adam tells me you're being sensitive about the rehearsal dinner. Sarah, you need to understand something. This family moves forward. If you're not part of the solution, you don't get to stand in the photos. Don't stand in the way. It wasn't a question or a concern. It was a threat. It confirmed everything. I wasn't family. I was an asset, and a potentially troublesome one. I played his message twice. Then I took out my journal and wrote, my hand steady. Financial ghosts don't bring gifts. It wasn't just a line anymore. It was a promise. I would go to that wedding, but I wouldn't be a ghost. I would be a reckoning. The wedding day dawned bright and painfully beautiful. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant navy dress, something that said dignified, not victim. Driving to the historic estate, the one I helped pay for, felt surreal. I saw the massive white tent, heard the faint strains of string music, smelled the expensive catering. It was a perfect picture, a carefully constructed illusion. I parked and walked toward the entrance, my gift envelope, containing a check I now had no intention of letting them cash in my hand. I saw Adam near the entrance, looking flustered in his tuxedo, talking to his new father-in-law, a portly man with a dismissive air. Adam saw me. His face tightened. He walked over, blocking my path, the father-in-law trailing him. Sarah, look, Adam said, his voice low and rushed. We need you to, well, hang back a bit. We're doing family photos inside. He gestured vaguely towards the lawn. Then he did it. He pulled a flimsy paper plate from a stack nearby and thrust it at me. We all agreed. You're not eyeing the main party. Just grab a bite out here. Okay. His father-in-law chuckled, a sound like gravel grinding. Real family eats under roofs. He sneered, looking me up and down as if I were something he'd scraped off his shoe. The world went quiet. The music faded. All I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. I looked at the pathetic paper plate in my hand. I looked at my brother's weak, entitled face. I looked at the smug stranger. And then I looked at the gift envelope I held. The rage I'd felt reading those chats solidified into a diamond-hard clarity. I calmly held out the paper plate. You can keep this, I said, my voice steady, almost conversational. Then I extended the gift envelope. And I'll take this back. Adam blinked. What? The envelope, I said, reaching past him and plucking it from the gift box where I'd momentarily placed it. A bridesmaid gasped. It's not for you anymore. I didn't rip the check. That felt too theatrical. Instead, I simply held it. Financial ghosts, I said, meeting Adam's bewildered gaze, don't bring gifts. A thick, uncomfortable silence fell. Mom came rushing out, her face a mask of confusion. Lily's mother whispered something urgently, but I just offered them a small, cool smile, turned on my heel, and walked away. I didn't run. I walked, feeling the weight lift with every step. In my car, I took a deep breath. Then I opened the Venmo app. The shared wedding expenses pool, $6,200, still linked to my account. With 3 taps, I cleared the balance to 0. Then I blocked every number associated with the wedding. The silence on my end was absolute. The next morning, my phone looked like it had caught fire. 39 voicemails, 112 messages, a storm of rage, confusion, and manipulative tears. I ignored them all. But then, one call came through from a number I hadn't seen in years. A number I thought was gone for good. It was Uncle Ben. "Sarah," his gruff voice said, "heard about the wedding stunt. Good for you. But listen, I think this runs deeper. Your dad, he did this to me years ago. There's something you need to know about the Oakwood Credit Union and a loan application from last year." And I knew this was never just about a wedding. It was about everything. And it was far from over. Uncle Ben's voice on the phone was the anchor I needed in the swirling storm of my family's manufactured outrage. We met the next day at a quiet diner miles from either of our homes. Ben, my father's estranged older brother, looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. He'd been cut out of the family business years ago by my father, under circumstances that were always spoken of in hushed, vague terms. Now, I was learning why. "Your father, Charles," Ben said, stirring his black coffee. "He's a charmer. Always has been. But underneath, he believes the rules don't apply to him, especially when it comes to money. He cheated me, Sarah, forged my name on documents. By the time I figured it out, it was too late." He leaned forward. "He mentioned needing a co-signer for some new venture last year. Said he couldn't ask your mother, bad credit. I told him to get lost. But then I heard he got the loan. I always wonder how. When I heard about Adam's wedding and how you were being treated, it clicked. Check Oakwood. Check any loans taken out around March last year. Be careful, Sarah." His words sent a chill down my spine. It seemed too monstrous, even for them. But driven by Ben's warning and my own cold anger, I started digging. It wasn't easy. It took hours of calls, navigating automated systems, and a deep dive into my own credit report, which I hadn't checked in far too long. And then I found it. A business loan for $75,000, taken out from Oakwood Credit Union, co-signed by me, with a signature that looked disturbingly like mine, but wasn't. They must have lifted my social security number and a signature from old college forms I'd foolishly left in my childhood bedroom. My father hadn't just used my money. He'd stolen my identity. This wasn't a slight anymore. It wasn't just about being excluded or mocked. This was a crime, a profound violation. The last vestiges of doubt, of any lingering familial obligation, evaporated. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. Chloe recommended Daniel Klein, a lawyer known for being sharp, empathetic, and relentless when it came to financial disputes. I walked into his office a week later, armed with a binder. Inside, screenshots of the chats, the spreadsheet, the Venmo transactions, Dad's threatening voicemail, and the loan documents. Daniel listened patiently, his expression growing more serious with each piece of evidence. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he looked at me, not with pity, but with a kind of grim respect. "Sarah," he said, "this is egregious. It's financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and very likely criminal fraud. We need to act, not just to reclaim what's yours, but to protect you going forward." We spent the next 2 weeks building a strategy. Daniel emphasized a calm, legal, and documented approach. We filed a police report and a fraud affidavit with the credit union. We drafted cease and desist letters. We prepared a formal notice of civil action. And we put together the truth package, 3 simple white boxes. During this time, a package arrived at my apartment. No return address. Inside a small box. I opened it to find old photos I hadn't seen in years, and tucked among them, a faded sheet of paper. It was a copy of my old driver's license, the one I thought I'd lost years ago. Stapled to it was a sticky note, written in my mother's familiar, loopy handwriting. "Charles, use this one. The signature is clearer. M." My breath caught in my throat. Mom. She hadn't just known. She'd helped. She'd handed my father the key to steal from me. Any tiny, lingering spark of hope for my mother, any benefit of the doubt, was extinguished. I added the note to my binder. It was twist number 2, delivered by mail. The call came 3 weeks after the wedding. My mother, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Sarah, dear, we were all very hurt by your actions, but we're family. Your father wants to talk. We're having a small gathering, just us this Sunday, to clear the air. Please come. For me. For me." The ultimate guilt trip, but I saw it for what it was, an attempt to reel me back in, to gaslight me into submission. Daniel agreed. It was the perfect opportunity. I arrived at my parents' house that Sunday, not alone, but with Daniel Klein by my side, carrying his briefcase. I carried the 3 white boxes. The shock on their faces, Mom, Dad, Adam, and a very pale Lily, was palpable. They expected a tearful, apologetic Sarah. They got a calm woman in a power suit with legal counsel. "Sarah, what is he doing here?" Dad boomed, gesturing at Daniel. "Daniel is my legal counsel," I said, my voice even. "He's here to observe." I walked to the heavy oak dining table and placed the boxes down one by one. They looked like innocent gifts, but they were anything but. "We need to talk about your outburst, your disrespect," Mom began, her voice trembling with feigned hurt. I held up a hand. "No, we're done with that narrative. Today we talk about the truth." I opened the first box. Box 1, receipts. Over $6,000 funneled into a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. My contributions. I opened the second box, spreading out the chat logs and the spreadsheet printout. Box 2, your gratitude. Off-brand energy. Sad single aunt. Keep outside main tent. Your true feelings. Adam, flushed crimson. Lily looked like she was going to be sick. In box 3, I said, opening the last one. Inside were legal documents. My boundaries. I looked straight at my father. Including this. A $75,000 loan from Oakwood Credit Union. Co-signed by me. Or rather, by someone pretending to be me. That's a lie. Slander. Dad roared, lunging forward slightly. "Is it?" I asked calmly. I didn't have a video, but I had something better. "The credit union has very clear security footage from March 17th last year, Dad. And Uncle Ben sends his regards. He remembers how you operate." I then turned to my mother, holding up the sticky note. "And Mom, I found your memo. You made sure he had a clearer signature, didn't you?" My mother crumpled. Lily let out a small sob, likely realizing the investment in Adam's future was built on fraud. Adam just stared, defeated. Daniel stepped forward, not to speak to them, but to me. He handed my father a thick envelope. "Mr. Last name," Daniel said formally. "You are hereby served with a notice of civil action and advised that a criminal complaint regarding identity theft and financial fraud has been filed. All future communication regarding Ms. Sarah, last name, must be directed through my office." I looked at each of them one last time. Not with anger, not with hate, but with a profound, weary sadness. And with a profound, liberating finality. "You didn't invite me to your wedding," I said, my voice clear and strong. "You invited my bank account, my silence, and my complicity. Consider this my final withdrawal on all counts." Then, Daniel and I turned and walked out the door, leaving them standing amidst the wreckage of their own lies. The heavy oak door closed behind me, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. The weeks following that final confrontation were a strange mix of turmoil for them and quiet resolution for me. The perfect family facade didn't just crack, it shattered. Lily, true to her opportunistic nature, left Adam within a fortnight. Her final public statement was an Instagram story, a picture of her engagement ring sitting on a public restroom sink, captioned, "Turns out the diamond was as fake as the family." Hashtag fresh start. Adam, stripped of Lily and my financial support, found himself drowning. The wedding venue and several vendors, unpaid, sued him for breach of contract. Last I heard, through the grapevine Chloe occasionally tended, he was living in a cramped studio apartment, posting vague motivational quotes that fooled no one, and working a dead-end job. My father's fall was harder and more public. The fraud investigation moved forward. His accounts were frozen, his consultant's license suspended. The community that once admired his success now whispered about his disgrace. The weight he tried to strap to my back had indeed crushed his own. My mother, predictably, tried manipulation. First came the tearful voicemails, full of "how could you do this to your family?" Then came a typed letter, cold and detached. "We didn't know the extent of what your father had done. We didn't mean to hurt you. Please remember we're still family." I read it once and filed it under delusions. The most validating piece of mail arrived about 3 months later. A formal, government-printed letter. It stated, in no uncertain terms, that the investigation had confirmed the fraudulent use of my identity. I was cleared of all liability for the $75,000 loan, and the case against Charles, last name, was proceeding to formal prosecution. It wasn't a moment of fist-pumping victory, but a deep, quiet exhale. It felt like my name, my very identity, had been scrubbed clean. Justice, it turned out, felt like balance restored. Around that time, Uncle Ben sent me a final package. Inside was a small flash drive, something I found clearing out old tapes. His note read, "Thought you should hear it." It was a recording dated 2019. My father's voice, low and amused. "She's good for money. We just need to keep her around, keep her feeling needed. We survive because she's easy. Just don't let her feel too important. If she ever gets smart, we're screwed." Then a pause and my mother's voice, chillingly confident. "She won't. He always comes back. She's wired that way." Hearing it didn't hurt anymore. It was just confirmation. Cold, hard proof that their actions weren't a mistake, but a long-term, calculated strategy. It erased the last phantom limb of guilt I might have felt. They were right. I had been wired that way. But wires can be cut. And so I cut them. I didn't just set boundaries. I built a fortress. I sold my apartment and moved 3 states away to a small town nestled in the mountains, a place with a big sky and quiet streets. I changed my number. I deleted all my personal social media accounts. Sarah, last name, the reliable fixer, the walking ATM, the off-brand sister, simply ceased to exist in their world. It was the most profound act of self-care I'd ever performed. The silence, after a lifetime of their noise, was delicious. I invested in myself. I finally put a down payment on a small house, a cozy little place with a patch of earth that would soon become my garden. I took cooking classes. I hiked the mountain trails. I reconnected properly with Chloe, who flew out to visit, and we laughed until we cried, celebrating my freedom. I strengthened my bond with Uncle Ben. Our calls now filled with easy conversation, not grim warnings. Sometimes I wrote, not for publication, but for myself, on an anonymous blog. I share my story, my pain, my journey. And slowly, messages trickled in. "My family did this too. Thank you, I thought I was alone. You gave me the courage to set a boundary." It wasn't No More Tents, not a platform, just a quiet corner of the internet where survivors found solace. It was enough. One crisp autumn afternoon, about a year after I'd left, I was sitting in my favorite cafe, the kind where they know your order, but not your story. I was sipping black coffee, reading a book, feeling utterly content. My phone, set on the table, began to buzz. And buzz. And buzz. Old numbers I didn't recognize, blocked numbers, a flurry of texts. A ghost of my old self might have felt a jolt of panic, an urge to answer, to explain, to defend. But I just looked at the screen, saw the desperate attempts to breach my peace, and felt nothing. A profound, unshakable indifference. I remembered seeing a perfect, 3-tiered white cake in a bakery window a few weeks earlier. Untouched, symmetrical, beautiful. And I'd smiled, realizing that was all they ever wanted me to be: decorative, useful, and silent. I turned the phone screen down, took another sip of coffee, and turned back to my book. They thought my strength was my weakness, my generosity a tap they could turn on and off. But my real strength, I realized, wasn't in confronting them or even in winning. It was in knowing, deep in my bones, that I didn't need their validation, their approval, or even their presence to be whole. They used to own my reactions. Now, they didn't even get my silence. My silence wasn't for them anymore. It was, finally, entirely for me. It was the sound of peace. It took losing the family I thought I wanted to find the peace I actually needed. What does family truly mean to you, and what boundaries have you learned are non-negotiable? Share your wisdom in the comments. We can all learn from each other.